Hello, my fellow anti-wanky danks. Today I have Tom back, and Tom has Ruby back, and we are back with another episode of anti-nutrition wankery today because well, I tend to have a lot of controversial opinions that shouldn't really be so controversial, but they're controversial because the alternative is why you're stuck where you are, why you're spinning your wheels, and why you feel frustrated. And I don't blame you because the internet is rife. And if you are a Facebook junkie in Facebook groups, you'll probably be even more confused. Because I put up a post the other day about you should not be living on 14 to 1600 calories. Emphasize the word living. People have this perception in their mind that whatever they end their calories on is what they keep the results on. And that is far from fact. That's number one. Number two, diets aren't meant to be sustainable. What you do to lose weight is not what you do to keep the results. Same similar thing. But if you listen into our last podcast, where we talked about how if you think you're maintaining on 1500 calories, you're not actually maintaining on 1500 calories, it's suppressed maintenance. Your metabolism is adaptive. We didn't have something planned to rant on about the fallacies of freaking macro trackers. I have a 5-minute rant of my own on that because macro trackers, macro calculators, can you do a macro check for me, please? Is all full of nonsense. They don't know you and they don't know your history. And that is a huge thing. I made a bloody I made an analogy to this and I don't even remember it now. I think, I do know. Someone asked me about what she thinks she should be doing for her nutrition. And I'm like, well, that's kind of like asking me what country you should visit for your next holiday. I don't know your preferences. I don't know what you like doing with your leisure. Do you like sightseeing? Do you like museums? Do you want somewhere tropical? Do you want to be able to go to the beach? There are so many things that I could tell you about where you should holiday. It's the same with what your macros or your nutrition plan should look like. I don't know your history. I don't know where you've been before. I don't think you would want to revisit somewhere that you've been before if you're looking to explore somewhere new because you want a different result from, obviously you want a different result. And I don't know where you struggled before, what you didn't enjoy before, where you fell short before to be able to guide you to where you should be moving now. And that's kind of the same with your nutrition. And so many times people start out with this perception in their mind based on their past experiences or based on their own biases. And this can be something as simple as, this is a great place for Tom to take this off as well, because it's my biggest gripe. People don't have any other measure of progress outside of fat loss. If you're not actively losing weight, if you're not actively chasing leaner, if you don't have this end goal of a scale number, it's almost like you're failing. You have nothing to progress on. There's no other measure of success. And that is always going to have you falling short because you can't keep losing weight forever. You can't keep shrinking forever because then you would die and you wouldn't exist because you would just become the next Benjamin Button in not age, but like tiny sizes, just getting smaller and smaller into nothing. And then you just goes poof. Like, that's the reality if you think about it in that way. And no matter how much fat you have to lose, the most sustainable, most successful way is with diet breaks, because you live a real life and dieting is mentally taxing. And this fear of gaining fat, this fear of bringing up your calories to where they should be in between diet breaks, not just like, I went from like I was eating all of this and now I dieted on this, so I'm just going to increase them a little bit and then go back down because I'm scared to actually gain fat right now. It's either that or it's the complete other extreme, which if you're not dieting, now you're bulking. Like, where's the middle ground? That is why people keep regaining fat and losing muscle and looking worse, having a slower metabolism, having more resistance, because now you're losing more faith in the process. You're putting in all of this effort. Very soon there's going to be a resistance of that effort. You feel like you're putting in more effort, but in relative speak, yes. In absolute speak, it's actually not as much as you did at start. Like if I think about the effort that I used to put in way back when I started, I don't know how the hell I did that. Like I feel like I'm putting in a lot of effort now, but if I think about the effort I put in then, that was like astronomical. And that's kind of where we found ourselves. But we've adapted to this new level of normal, so we don't realize that. So with that, where are you wanting to take that?
I think you touched on something important there about how people's perception of what diets should be is largely like marred by what they've done before. So something that I've experienced myself as a coach a lot of times, and I know you have as well, is this idea where people will say, well, I've done this diet before and I lost loads of fat doing that, so that works. I put it back on though, but I want to do that kind of diet again because that works. So typically what we'll get is a client will come and say, look, I ate 900 calories before, or I ate low carb before, or I cut carbs back before, and it worked really, really well. And it's like, well, did it though? Because if it did work really well before, why do you need to do it again? Like if you have dieted down and lost a bunch of fat and then you've regained that weight, that diet to an extent didn't work to begin with. And the problem that a lot of people run into is they're like, well, but that did work because I did achieve the goal that I wanted. And so I want to do that again. And it can be really difficult to help people get their head around the idea that like, well, something else might work better. So like, is this something that you've run into? Like, how do you tend to deal with that? Like, what would you recommend for people stuck in that kind of situation?
It's kind of like a toxic ex where you're like, oh, it'll be better next time. Oh,
yeah.
I remember the good times. I remember that. I'll go back to get a little bit more of that. But it just never works out. And then you just end up keeping yourself stuck. And it's exactly as you said. Like, if it works for you, why is it that you're not where you want to be? What is it that actually came up to get you to where you are now? What happened in life? Because that same thing is going to keep coming over and over again. And my massive quote before I throw it back to you is, okay, so if you keep approaching any new approach, any new coach with the same mindset that got you stuck many other times, how do you expect to not get yourself stuck in a pickle again? Because that same mindset is the same thing. And I know, because one more thing, here's one. So you want change because you know that what you did didn't work, because realistically they know that it didn't work. That's why they are where they are now. But it's like this fear thing where it's like, I just want this back. I'm craving that feeling again. But if you think about that very fact, it's almost like, I'm scared that my body's not going to respond. I don't trust my body, because that was me. Like, I trusted the process. I knew the coach that I was going to get. It took me many months to finally sign up with him, because I'm like, holy shit, there's a price to pay here. I don't know if I'm willing to pay that price if I'm not going to be able to stick to it, or if my body doesn't respond, or if I end up worse. What if I end up going backwards? What if I gain all of this fat back? I can't let myself even slip away, because I can't do the fat loss process again. I remember when I tried, and it was such a huge struggle, and I could not lose anything. Like, I was grinding and nothing was coming off. And I was scared to trust him to do anything with my body, because what if I had to do that all over again and it didn't work out the way that it should have worked out, because my body's not the same as everyone else's. I'm a special snowflake. And I feel like that's where a lot of people find themselves.
Absolutely. Like, people get into this comfort zone of what they're doing right now, and it can be really scary to change. Like, I experienced this myself. Like, I signed up with a coach recently. I'm now training very differently to what I was training when I was doing it myself. And it is almost, you have this resistance of like, no, but it was working before. But the fact is, it wasn't. Like, if it was working before, you wouldn't have signed up to a coach. If what I was doing was getting me as strong as I wanted to, I wouldn't have signed up to a coach, right? And I think there's always this disconnect Because the person that you are when you're sat there thinking, right, okay, I need to hire a coach because this isn't working, is almost like a different person to the person that's then sat there looking at their program or their diet, whatever. And what people get trapped in is this idea of doing more. It's like, oh, well, this coach has me eating more food instead of less food. This coach has me doing way less volume instead of the more volume. I'm scared of doing that. I'm scared of training sensibly instead of battering myself into the ground. I'm scared of eating sensibly rather than being as restrictive as humanly possible. But the fact is that wasn't working before. Otherwise, you wouldn't have sought help. And when you seek help, you are going to be told to do something different to what you're doing right now, because what you're doing right now isn't working. And I 100% get that, because it is this like visceral reaction where if you've been talking to yourself for the past months, being like, right, this isn't working, I need to train harder, I need to train harder, I need to eat less, I need to eat less, I need to eat less. You get trapped into that kind of vortex of doing more to do more to do more to do more to do more. And the idea of doing less doesn't even occur. So when it's almost imposed upon you by an external party, you have this like immediate, I'm going to say again, a visceral response. It's like, I am terrified of doing this. But that's where I would always recommend, like, sign up to a coach that you trust, sign up to a person that seems to really jive with you, and make sure you lean in on speaking to that coach and airing your fears and making sure that they know that you're there, but also listen to their responses, because it's okay to be scared of like changing stuff, but you need to change the stuff anyway. That's what you're kind of here for, right?
I think people take themselves way too seriously. They take everything within this way too seriously. They forget to have fun with it and why they're really doing it, because it's not to see the scale go down. If you really think about it, it's like, what are you hoping to get out of that? Is it to feel more confident? Is it to not feel as shit as you do now? What is actually causing you to feel shit? Is it your habits? Is it your lifestyle? Like, what is it in particular? Because if you put, this is like my massive thing, and I don't know how many times I need to say it until people make this connection, where if you think of your life as a pie, you have your values in there. If your life is so brilliant, then why isn't more of that pie taken up with your life instead of self-berating on yourself, doing everything you can to focus on shifting your body, but then understanding that does not mean letting yourself go. Like, this is why I try to show my physique within this as well, but it's also embracing there are seasons in life. There are seasons, and it is really beneficial to stick through with your coach during these seasons, because it is very easy to either get too hard on yourself or too soft on yourself and end up where you don't want to be, because that's why coaches are called coaches, not trainers. They are there for so much more to help you with your minimum effective dose, with what you need as support. Like, they're proactive care, not reactive care where you're paying double the cost to now recoup your health, because you're also paying the cost physically, not just financially. And you're most likely paying for it emotionally and mentally too. So there's that to think about. But it's also, if you think about that pie, those habits, putting more into your life, is going to allow you to keep doing this for a long period of time, because it becomes more sustainable. And I said this in my stories the other day, where we didn't start off enjoying what we do. We didn't start off super motivated. But after repeating the actions over and over again, we realized how much it benefited our lives, how great we feel for it, how much it's allowed us to give to others. Like, it's benefited us. So we keep doing it. But I was just telling Tom before the podcast today that my squats, some of my lifts have been feeling absolutely shit, and I have not had the motivation to do those things. So yes, I'm pushing through it. I pushed through it, but now what's the next move? It's having that looked at by my coach next week when I start the new program, after doing the one that I've just been doing for friggin' 10 and a half weeks. So it's kind of like, okay, so what's the situation right now? Can we push through it? Is this still an issue? Let's pivot. Let's adapt. It's that adaptability that makes you successful, because the perfect plan, like, I want to go back to the sustainability part, and then we're going to move to expanding the meaning of progress. But the sustainability part is not like, this isn't sustainable. Like, what you're doing for fat loss isn't meant to be sustainable, like I said.
No.
And there are periods within your life where that isn't going to be sustainable long term. The meaning of balance always changes. If training 5 days a week is something that you were able to sustain once, being able to pivot and say, okay, let's go to 4 days when life gets crazy is actually success, because now you're able to keep doing it. And it does not mean you're going to move away from progress. Yes, you've removed one set of stimuli, but it doesn't mean all of a sudden you're going to lose progress. If anything, you may be able to start recovering better. You give more to life. Then you get more out of those sessions that you're actually doing. Your nutrition might improve because now you have more focus on that nutrition. And it's something that Tom and I are going to talk about on our next episode. He still has to pick a research paper on nutrition, but it's going to be more related to this sort of kind of like topic so that it's hand in hand. But it's okay, so when does more actually start becoming even less? How does more actually lead us to regress? Because sometimes doing that more can be the very thing that's leading to you gaining weight when you're meant to be in a quote unquote deficit. And there's reasons for that. And a lot of it is us not understanding we are humans in a dynamic environment. We are influenced by so many things outside of what we can currently perceive, which is kind of what you said with we do things based on what we know. But we're going to talk about that next podcast, so you better want to stay tuned. But this whole meaning of progress thing and what to focus on. Because as you said, we are so focused on the way that we used to do things. We don't have any other meanings, like any other measure of progress.
Like, if I believe one thing, it's that people should focus on some kind of athletic thing. So the question should be, what can my body do? And this goes for people who want to build muscle, people who want to lose fat, and also people who do just want to focus on athletic outcomes. And the reason for that is because if you think, right, I want to be able to get my body to do X. Let's say I want to hit a 20-minute 5K. Even if you want to lose weight, you think, right, I want to hit my 20-minute 5K. So I need to go out and do the running and all of that, yes. I also need to be in a calorie deficit because I want to lose fat, but I can't go too hard, because then it's going to start affecting my running ability. And what that does is it constrains you to a diet that's actually sensible. And the same thing is true in the other direction. Like if you're trying to lose fat and gain muscle, again, well, if I diet too hard, it's going to cock up my training sessions. And being in this mentality, what it ultimately leads to do is it tricks you to dieting sensibly. It tricks you into not dropping fat so fast that muscle just falls off. It tricks you to not dieting so quickly that you just feel horrendous all the time. And that makes it sustainable. It also provides other benefits. Like if you have a week where the scale goes up, but your 5K time comes down by 20 seconds, cool, we're still moving in the right direction. We're still progressing with that. And finally, it gets rid of the what now situation after you finish the diet. There are loads of people who come to me who've lost weight and then put most of it back on, who said like, well, I lost fat and then I just kind of didn't really know what to do then. And that problem comes because that fat loss isn't a great goal on its own for most people. Yeah, obviously, if you're in a situation where body fat is affecting your day-to-day life, like if you've got a lot of weight to lose, if it's affecting your health, then yeah, that's one thing. But for most people, especially the people listening to this podcast, the majority of you are of a healthy weight already. You're just would like to be leaner. And unfortunately, that just tends to not be a great goal on its own because it doesn't lead anywhere. It's like, once you're leaner, what now? Are you going to get even leaner and do a photo shoot? All right, cool. What then? You're going to get even leaner and compete? Great. What then? At some point, you're going to have to do something else. And if you're focusing on something a little bit more athletic, you have that already built in. The other thing is already there. I mean, how do you deal with that with clients? Do you do a similar thing? Do you do something else? Like let's say you've got a client comes to you looking for fat loss, and their fat loss is going to take like 3 months. When do you start talking about like month 4, month 5, month 6? What do you do then?
That's the thing there. It's why it is so important to not start yourself out in a fat loss phase, because that tends to be very short-lived. And that's kind of where the pre-diet comes in, because a successful fat loss phase starts before the diet, setting up the habits. And so many people don't have those habits already in check. We spoke about this last podcast, and it's so important you go back to listen to that, because those habits are foundational for a successful fat loss phase. Because if you're coming to us on 1400 calories, even 1600 calories, you are not going to thrive in your fat loss phase. You are going to sabotage yourself with hunger and with other things outside of what you are even aware of. And it is really important from the get-go, which is why I try to read out like performance goals from the set point, because physique change takes so much time. Listen to episode 250. I highly recommend you do it. It's with Luke Lehman. It's focused, like he literally says that you need to have a performance goal, because having just physique goals is going to lead to you losing motivation. It takes time. You can be putting in all of the effort, feeling your ass cheeks about to fall off your pelvic bone with friggin' ember steaming out of it because you just burnt them so much. And you can repeat that effort over and over again. But your ass isn't gonna bloody grow like freaking Kim Kardashian's in a month. Like, muscle growth takes time, and it's ridiculous. I hope I don't get banned from the group, but I pulled someone up earlier today who said, yeah, but that's the thing. Muscle is really fast. Fat loss is really slow. And I'm like, what fucking planet is this lady on? Like, no, that is not muscle that is coming on. You're getting fat. That is fat. You're eating too much because you're doing it wrong. Like, this is the thing. Our goal as coaches is not to get you fat. It's to get you to where you want to be. And telling you to stop focusing on fat loss is not us telling you, let's go get porky and start doing a freaking sumo wrestling match. Like, no, we want to get you to your goals. It's just what you're doing isn't working. You're not broken, your system is. And it's because it's been brainwashed in you. We don't blame you. That is why we're trying to help you. And you'll just end up with a squirrel brain bouncing between different goals because you don't have any true focus on your training. And that's why I try to focus on, and I know you do too with yours. We are very performance driven. We show you lifting. We show you women doing badass shit, because it is that badass shit that leads to the physique. You find someone who isn't training like a beast, who doesn't have a great physique. And if, yeah, okay, you want to point out someone that has a lot of adiposity / body fat, that isn't them training like a beast. That is them not giving a shit about what they eat at the same time. There's a difference between not giving a shit about what you eat and intentionally eating more to fuel your performance. I just want to quickly touch on something you said there because it's so important. It's not just the fact that now you're going to think nutrition-wise in terms of where to put your nutrition because performance is the focus. It's like, how can I like fuel myself to have a good session, blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, now I'm not going to get roasted on the weekend with alcohol because I want to make sure that I wake up on Monday to have a fresh session. Okay, I'm going to make sure that I get my ass to bed on time so I can wake up energized for my day, because slacking on sleep and drinking alcohol are probably the two biggest things that stop you from getting your goals. The two biggest things. They both lead in the end to a lot more adiposity and a lot less muscle. If you're not sleeping, do not expect to see the physique results that you want to see, because the downstream impacts are vast. And muscle repairs when you sleep. Your body relaxes and rejuvenates when you sleep, which is essential to optimizing your metabolism in the first place and your hormones in the first place. So keep that in mind. Now, most people are under-muscled and they just see themselves as fat. How would you address that if they just want to get leaner and fit into their old skinny clothes?
I mean, it obviously it depends on the levels, right? Like, again, if I'm working with someone who is significantly overweight to the point where like this is going to be affecting their cardiovascular disease risk, it's going to be affecting their daily mobility and stuff, that person, let's just start dieting straight away. But broadly speaking, when I speak to a new person, my overall goal is to first of all get you in control of what you're eating. So most people, when they come to me as a coach, I tend to find they eat 2 to 3 meals a day. Sometimes they skip breakfast, sometimes they don't. They'll snack here and there on the weekend. They don't really plan their food. To be fair, they don't plan their food ahead of time at all. And what this means is that a lot of their food choices are made in the moment, and they tend to not be great during certain circumstances. When they get busy, their food goes out the window. When they're invited to a friend's house, their food goes out the window. And overall, I would describe this situation as eating reactively. So in order for someone to lose fat, they need to be able to eat proactively. You need to be in a position where you can plan your food ahead of time. It doesn't have to be like weeks ahead of time, but you should wake up in the morning knowing what you're going to eat that evening. Like it doesn't have to be more complicated than that. And you need to be able to say, right, I'm going to eat these things today and then stick to that. If you can't do that, me giving you a calorie deficit is a waste of both of our time, because you're not going to be able to stick to it. And that's not your fault. You need to get those skills on deck first. So once I've worked with someone to be able to do that, and that usually happens where we'll be eating either at maintenance or like a little bit below, because if you go way below maintenance, like if you maintain on 2,000 calories and I give you 1,500 calories and try to get you in control of your food, it's not going to happen at the same time, because hunger is going to be working against you. Once you can eat those 2,000 calories consistently by planning it ahead of time, not snacking on top, planning for the weekends, and this can take 2 weeks. It doesn't take a really long time. Once you can do that, at that point we can start being like, right, let's adopt a calorie deficit now, because you can easily do it. If you can plan your food and stick to it, it's really easy to just go, right, let's eat slightly less than that and keep doing what you're doing. And during that time, we will be getting stronger. Now, if I've got someone who comes to me and they are what the culture defines quite uncharitably as skinny fat, where they're under-muscled and they've got a little bit of body fat on them, but it looks like you're gaining, it looks like you've got more fat than you do because you don't have any real muscle tone. That's a person where I would usually get the meeting at maintenance and just lifting hard. It's like, right, if you want to look really good, let's not think, how good can I look in 12 weeks? Because the fact is, if you go from skinny fat to fat loss, you just end up skinny. And the problem is that, like, I know culturally, especially women, have been told that, like, skinny is good, blah, 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 especially, like, through the 90s, like 90s and 2000s. All you're going to end up is the same shape but smaller, and that usually isn't actually what people want. They kind of think it's what they want, and if it is what you want, that's fine. Like, you can have whatever the goals you want, I don't care. But it's usually not what people want. Usually what people want is they look at bodies of celebrities or people in magazines or influencers or people on Instagram, and those people are usually toned, even if they are relatively lean, even if they don't have like an athletic physique as people think of now, as in like a muscle and fitness athletic physique. But if you look at like a typical tennis player, or you look at a typical, even like a distance runner, like these people are not just skinny, right? Like a tennis player or a female footballer, any of these people, they're not just skinny. They have muscle mass as well. And these usually are the bodies people are looking at and saying, I want to look like that. And that person has more muscle mass than you do. And it's an awful lot easier for us to say, right, let's aim at maintenance. And I guarantee you, in 6 months' time, if we eat roughly at maintenance with primarily whole foods and you train really hard, you're going to look an awful lot better than if we diet for the next 4 months, get you super skinny and feeling rubbish, and then try to build muscle from that point where you've got no energy and we've just further delved into your negative body image. Like, working with people on body image is difficult. It's a huge component of what I do, and it takes a lot of time, and I'm always so proud of every client that works with me on that, because it does take a lot of patience, and it also takes a lot of faith, because when you've got negative body image, what you feel like you need to do is change your body shape. And the problem is that body image isn't your shape, right? It's your interpretation of your shape, and that interpretation has the brain component, and usually it's the brain component that needs working on. So again, shifting focus away from I need to be smaller, I need to be skinny, I need to be smaller, I need to be skinny, is difficult, but it's something that you need to do. Huge parts of doing that are, yes, focusing on an athletic goal, but also buy more clothes. If you've dieted down in an unsustainable way, got really skinny, and then bought clothes at your unsustainably skinny size, when you regain weight, which is inevitable because you probably were too skinny or you did it in a way that wasn't sustainable, you're inevitably going to regain weight. And then if you're always going to try and get back into those clothes that you bought at your skinniest, you're always going to be upset about that. You're always going to feel like you're out of shape. You're always going to feel like you've gained weight. And it is really difficult to do. Ruby, I know you've spoken to me about clients like this before, where like it is hard. And if you bought clothes at that point, it does feel like a waste to throw them away. But what's the alternative? You're either going to throw those clothes away, buy some clothes that fit, look and feel good in them, and then train and work on your athleticism and work on your body image, or you can keep beating yourself with that stick, and it's probably not going to end well if you do that.
Yeah, that's it right there. That's it right there. And it's the fact that the people that you're looking at that look really lean, a lot of the time we think that they look leaner than we are, but a lot of the time we are actually smaller than them. They just look a lot fitter. They look a lot more athletic. They are bigger than what we imagine. And it took, like, I didn't realize that this goal physique that I was looking at was 8 kilos heavier than I was wanting that body because it looked leaner. And then when I looked at myself in comparison, now, not back then, because I still felt like I was fatter back then. But when I actually see how I was back then in comparison to this person that I was aspiring to, I was like tiny. And that's the thing with body image. It doesn't discriminate. And we usually let the scale or body or clothes trigger us so badly into this shit. Like anything can trigger us into this, especially if you've been lean before. And the last part we're gonna end this with is understand that you can diet really hard probably once in your life. You're never gonna have that same experience again because the body is adaptive. It will learn its adaptive ways. It's going to remember that and store it in its memory. Like you can diet really hard. Maybe you get really amazing results by the end of that, but you need to build yourself back up again. You need to build that muscle. You are not going to get probably to that same leanness that you were before if then the only thing you trigger point yourself into is the next diet. You're just going to look worse with the worse metabolism, a worse relationship with your body, and only more obsessed about the fact that you are not where you want to be because you keep doing the very same things that are keeping you stuck because you won't slow down to realize that that isn't the answer anymore. It really isn't. And that is why coaches exist. And Tom and I work with it all the time. That is why we are here giving you these podcasts so that something one day these weeks repeated over is going to ding a bell and you'll reach out to one of us and let us know. Yep. So Tom and I will be coming at you next podcast with kind of digging into some research around what we mentioned with metabolism. I don't know what he's going to pick up with nutrition, but I'm excited because I feel like it'll be really great to bring some research that we discuss back and forth on a nutrition topic and an exercise topic and one that's related and relate it to different situations, pull it apart because a lot of the time it's not very nuanced related to who we deal with. So we're going to make it that way. So with that, catch us on the next podcast. Bye.